Hey everybody. Sorry, I turned the camera on a little bit early. Anyway, my name is Morry, and I'd like to welcome you to our chat for this month. Just for those of you who may not know, I actually am here to answer your questions, comments, and concerns. So let me just say hi, buddy. Feel free to ask me anything. Okay, so the purpose of this call, as I said, is a Q&A, really. It's a customer service call that I have to give you folks an opportunity to ask me anything you want. The basic theme of the call is it'll go as long as it needs to go. So hopefully, I'm hoping more people will get on. Normally, it takes a few minutes before we get enough people. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please type them in the area provided. Uh, Click on the little paper airplane icon so I can see. Because without you asking questions, this is not going to last very long at all. The theme of this month's Triliminals was friendship. And some of you, I'll just fill a little time here. Some of you may have noticed that there's a number two after friendship. And the reason for that is a while ago, I created two triliminals that instead of using what some might call infamous UR commands, and I'll explain that why I use UR in triliminals anyway. But just to see if people were awake, I created a couple of them as I am. And actually, one of our listeners actually called me on it, and I said, okay, no problem. So this month I did friendship, and next month we are actually redoing number two, feeling safe. The feeling safe triliminals are going to get redone as well, and those will get done as you are as well. Now, while I wait for those of you who are here, early risers, if you will, to type out some questions for me, pardon me, I'm going to state a couple of things. First of all, for those of you unfamiliar with YouTube, when this chat is finished, it will be saved on YouTube and you'll be able to access it from this channel anytime you want. You can even go to YouTube and just type in my name and you'll come up with the channel. You'll be able to ask anything. Well, you won't be able to. Actually, yes, you will be able to watch it and ask things. I will be monitoring. So if anybody does ask me if they want anything, if they want to know anything, I'll be happy to answer by typing. I won't obviously be able to answer this way. However, what I'd like to know right off the bat is, can you hear me okay? That's the first thing that I absolutely need to know. I'm looking at the bottom here and I don't see the gauge moving very well. So I just want to make sure. Shannon says you can hear me okay. All right, great. Well, that's great. And I noticed you wrote something there, Shannon. Thank you as well. So let's get to the first question so that I don't have to keep people waiting. Actually, Shannon, if you don't mind, there was a customer who asked me a question through email. So, and this question was asked, I think 3 days ago. So this is for you, Colette. Here we go. I can't make the live call, but I was hoping you could answer my question. I'll see it on the replay. The Aftershocks headset you mentioned in a previous call sounded interesting, so I got a pair. How has your experience been with them, and do you have any tips to improve their effectiveness with your recordings? Thanks in advance, Colette. Okay, so actually, yes, Aftershocks headsets, for those of you that don't know, are actually vibratory headphones. Instead of going in your ear or on top of your ear, they actually have a vibratory surface that goes right about here. And they're really great because when you're listening to music, you can also hear because your ear is unobstructed, so you can hear everything. Now, the reason why these things, oh, okay, thanks, Sandra Lee, sorry. So the reason why Aftershocks headphones are particularly good for my entrainment is that they vibrate. And for those of you that don't know, entrainment is all about vibration. Sound is really a fallacy. No one in the history of the human race has ever actually heard anything. Believe it or not, you may think you're listening to me, but you're really not. Your computer, your headphones, your phone, whatever you're listening on, is actually creating vibratory patterns that go in through your brain, or sorry, in through your ear. They vibrate various cilia, hairs, and bones and other tissue, which then gets into your brain, and then your brain processes these vibrations and interprets them as sound. As a matter of fact, if all of you out there could hear my voice, actually record my voice the way you hear it, every recording would sound a little bit different because your brain is actually doing the interpretation. It isn't your ears that are hearing anything. They're just responding to vibration, which your brain then interprets. So, that being said, the Aftershocks headphones don't really produce quote unquote sound. What they do is they produce a what's called bone conduction vibration, which vibrates a larger part of your skull area. And that, in my experience, has created a superior entrainment effect. Now, before you all go out buying these Aftershocks headphones, I want to point out that the way they're currently designed, they have a neck piece. So when you lie down, it's very difficult to actually get them to line up in the right spot. They're not designed to be worn lying down. They're designed to be worn when you're working out, when you're running, when you're walking, that kind of thing. So I am trying to reach someone at Aftershocks to see if they'd be willing to design a brainwave entrainment version that would have an over-the-head version or even an over-the-forehead version. But unless you're going to be listening to this in a chair with head support that allows you the ability to lean back and not have this bar from the headset being pushed forward, it is a little bit problematic. Now, keep in mind, I have many, many decades of experience listening to these recordings, and I'm able to still get very good effects, even if my head is not necessarily in the exact position it should be in. So, if you wanted to experiment with it, you're certainly welcome to. They're great for music. They're much safer to wear in public because, like I said, you can hear things. But as far as an entrainment perspective is concerned, they need a little redesign work so that they don't get pushed out of place when you are lying down or leaning back with your head in the proper position. So hopefully that helps. Okay. I hope I took care of that. I did promise her she'd get it first because her question was first. So there you go. That's the first question. I want to remind everyone again that this call goes based on, it literally goes based on your questions. So I'm happy to be here as long as you want me to be here. So let's get to Shannon's question because she was number 2 on the list. Hi, Morry. Do you have any pardon me. Do you have any triluminals on getting rid of fear and or remove negative outlooks on life, especially where money is concerned? Okay, I do have fear triluminals, ones that are designed to help with fear, but it's really interesting. When I first designed triluminals, I don't know how many of you know this, but triluminals were designed because Song asked me, Song, many of you know who he is. He's the guy who discovered me, and we're kind of partners in this. He asked me after quantum mind power was created, and we actually asked you all, well, not all of you, because some of you may not have been here back then, but we asked you what was most important to you that you'd like to work on. Because quantum mind power is designed as a generalized self-improvement system. Now, quantum mind power, we'll get into that in a minute, but first let me finish one thought before I get into another one. So quantum mind power was designed as a general self-improvement system. So it's not really guiding you in any way, shape, or form. It's designed to expand your brain, expand your mind, and you discover everything yourself. That's kind of like how all of my systems are designed anyway. But quantum mind power might be the purest of these. So what happened was, when we were going to come up with our next product, which was, funny enough, called Quantum Confidence, Song asked me to come up with something new and unique that could help people that's never been done before. And that's how triluminals were born. So for those of you that may not know what triluminals are, very simply stated, they are a specially designed brainwave frequency that is designed to elicit certain neurochemical responses that are better for you to take in information. So what it does is it helps to create something, for instance, called LTP. LTP stands for long-term potentiation, and it's a hormone that basically, if it exists, it allows for memories to form. If it doesn't exist, or information to be taken in, if it doesn't exist, information tends to go in one ear and out the other. So that's basically how that works. So the triluminals have that brainwave frequency embedded. it also has me speaking to you, because it's not enough to hear me once, 3 times. You get me in the left ear with information that's designed for your right hemisphere, in the right ear with information for the left hemisphere. Now, the reason for that is that's how perception works. Information that comes in your left ear goes to the right side and vice versa. So that's designed that way. But that's not enough, because sometimes information is better for both. And we don't want to alienate a hemisphere or not. So there's specially designed coding and scripting done that's designed to be acceptable by either or even both hemispheres at the same time. And those are stated in the center. So you get 2 sides in the center, hence triliminal for three. So that's how a triliminal is designed. And the specific statements have to be specially written as well, because keeping in mind that I don't know what's best for you, you know what's best for you. I specifically word the scripts so that even if you don't agree with the outward connotation, if you will, that I'm saying out loud, your brain will naturally reword it and reposition it in a way that is acceptable to you and applies to your circumstance. So that way, even though you hear my voice, I'm not actually programming. You're programming yourself. So getting back to Shannon's question about getting rid of fear and a negative outlook on life, yeah, we actually do have triliminals on fear and on associated topics like that. But when they were designed, and this is going back to the quantum confidence, Song asked me to create something new. So I did, and I created the quantum confidence triliminal. It was just one triliminal, that's it. And it was so popular that everyone asked me to make a club, which we did. And now every month we offer up different triliminals. So right now I think we're at 117 sets of triliminals. That's how long quantum confidence has been around for. What we have discovered, however, is that a single recording, whereas it can be helpful, doesn't necessarily do the job very well. So when I designed my brain prints recordings, we came up with a system that can be applied to triliminals. And this system is very simple. Basically, go through the triliminals that you have while holding the intention in your mind. So I want to release fear, and I want to have a positive outlook. So first, fear. So I go through holding the intention of fear with the topics that I have. Or if you don't have any and you want to purchase, then you go through the listing of the triliminals that you have, or that you can have. And the ones that jump out at you in a positive way, you would write them down. Or if you already have them, you would copy them into a folder. Then the ones that jump out at you in a negative way are perhaps even more important to your issue. And those you would also either write down or put into the folder as well. Now you have a system, let's say you might have 5 or 6 recordings in there that are geared towards fear. This is a problem with a lot of self-improvement programs in that A, they're not adaptable. So if you want to adapt something, you have to wait for version 2.0 and then buy it. Whereas with the triliminals, especially our mega systems that involve 70 or more recordings, you can always adapt your system as you improve. But not just that, anytime you have a new issue that crops up, you can always use it to create a new system, custom system for yourself. So what we found was that when you hold your intention and choose positive and negative ones that jump out at you, those actually are your subconscious's way of telling you these are related to your fear issue. Now you do the same thing for your negative outlook. You then will find some of these recordings will be the same. Obviously, you don't have to create a new list. You just add to your list. So if you have some of the recordings the same, great. You don't have to add them again. But if you see additional recordings that weren't there before, you add them. So let's say you have 4 or 5 issues you want to work on all at the same time, which is actually a great idea because they're all intertwined anyway. And that's one of the reasons why we struggle to help ourselves when we concentrate just on one aspect and we wonder why we're not getting better and we're not improving. It's because we're ignoring all the other aspects. Well, this way to choose your recordings takes that into account, and it allows you to actually process and let your subconscious mind process for you on a conscious and subconscious level what is involved in my fear, what what is involved in my lack of confidence, what is involved in my poor relationships, what is involved in any topic. Because your instinct will drive you either positively or negatively to or against a certain recording. Those are the recordings that you listen to. So now we may have 5 different, you know, intentions that we want to work on, and maybe 15 or 20 recordings. So obviously you're not going to be able to listen to 15 or 20 triliminal recordings every day, and you shouldn't. Generally speaking, we found the optimal number of triliminals to listen to in any one day is 3. So that would be the very most, which is an hour and a half spread out over the whole day. Now, let's say tomorrow you can listen to an hour and a half and you have 20 recordings. So you would look through that list of 20 recordings, and the first one that jumps out at you that day, that's the one you listen to. Then the next time you listen that day, you look at the remaining 19, and the one that jumps out at you first is the one that you listen to. Let's say you listen to a third one that day. Again, you look at the remaining 18 and you listen to it. Then the next day, you look at the remaining 17 for whatever you're going to listen to. And then the next day, the remaining, whatever's remaining until you get through the whole list. And then you just keep cycling through. Now, interestingly enough, and one of the aspects that makes this even better, because it's great that you can create your own system, but not just that, and I don't want this to sound like a sales pitch. This is for those of you that have this already, or even your other recording systems of mine. You can do the same process to pick your recordings to listen to, because your subconscious will help you to do that. So what happens is down the road, let's say a month or 2 down the road, your circumstances are changing. So now you hold your intentions again, and you will find that some of the recordings you pick are the same and others will actually be different, which is evidence that you're changing. And you just keep doing this. You can keep manipulating your system until you get it perfect for you every month or 2, or however long you feel the need to do it. And then you end up molding it and customizing it and recustomizing it for as long as you need to. This is another problem with a lot of self-improvement stuff, because it's good, but it's good as a beginning. Now, there are other companies that will charge you, $300 to start, and then $700 for the next section, and then $500 for the section after that, and then $1,000 for the section after that, and you keep going and going and going. Well, again, for this one, you pay once and you're done. Now, if you wanted to buy individual triliminals based on your specific needs, you can always ask me to send you a list, and you can just choose from the list. Use the exact same exercise and choose from the list, and then let us know which ones you want. Song is terrific about giving wonderful deals for people. So there you go. I hope that explains the whole triliminal thing and the best way to pick them. The reason I did that specifically was Shannon was asking, are there triliminals specifically for these purposes? And I needed to explain that yes, there are, but if you really want to get every aspect of the problem taken care of, you need to pay attention and honor every aspect of that situation. So I hope that has helped. We're going to go on to the next question, but I want to remind people that you are the reason I'm here in more ways than one. And I appreciate you, and I'm grateful for you. And I will be here as long as you need me to be here, as long as I'm getting questions or comments, or if you have stories you want to share. Okay? The only thing I won't talk about is the products of other people. Otherwise, everything else is fair game. So, okay. So Sandra Lee was saying there was no sound, and then there is sound. Sometimes YouTube can have an issue. You'll find that when you actually go through, and as I mentioned before, this, YouTube automatically processes the replay. So you'll be able to check out the replay, and if anything got missed, I'm sure it'll come up on the recording of the replay. So please don't worry about that. All right, we have Sally. Your instructions say to listen to a brainwave entrainment at least twice a day, and to listen to the mini meditation at least once a day. Are they the same downloaded recording with a pause in between? Okay, so Sally, I think you're talking about the quantum mind method now. So let me get into a little bit of that for people, because this is going to be new for my audience. The quantum mind method is basically quantum mind power 2.0. I was been trying for a long time and working to make quantum mind power even better than it is. And for so many years, I wasn't able to do anything to change it. And in reality, quantum mind power, the aspect of quantum mind power that exists within the quantum mind method, which is its new branding, is actually very similar as far as the components that were in quantum mind power. The only thing that I could do to find to actually make those components better was to change the tuning frequency of the recordings. There's you can look up the difference between 440 hertz, so the 440 hertz, and 432 hertz. As I stated in my instructions, and Sally's probably aware of this, there's as many people out there who say this is a miraculous thing as there are people saying it's a crock. Now, in my experimentation with it, I noticed profound differences between having the quantum mind recordings as 432 hertz tuning as opposed to 440 hertz tuning. Now, I'm not going to get into, unless you ask questions specifically about it, I'm not going to really get into right now the differences and everything else. But if you have questions about the difference between 440 and 432 hertz, I'm more than happy to answer those because they're legitimate questions considering they're an integral part of the quantum mind method, which again is quantum mind power 2.0. I want to point out for those of you who have quantum mind power and aren't interested in upgrading it to the 432 hertz version, but they do want the additional components, which would be the 4 mini systems, as well as the new VI recordings, which stand for visual image entrainment, then, you just email us. And when we can confirm that you have the quantum mind power, we're more than happy to come up with a lower price for you to upgrade to the other recordings, the VI visual recordings, as well as the specialty recordings, the focused recordings. So now that we've kind of gotten that out of the way, and again, I'm more than happy to answer questions regarding the quantum mind method and anything we've changed or done to it, especially the 432 hertz tuning as opposed to the 440. It's actually kind of interesting, but only if you ask questions about it will I get into that, unless we need to fill time to give you a chance to type more so you can ask questions. So getting back to the question, it says your instructions say to listen to the brainwave entrainment at least twice a day and then listen to the mini meditation at least once a day. Are they the same downloaded recording with a pause in between? Okay, so here's assuming again, and you'll correct me, Satali. Sorry, I thought that was Sally. I apologize. You'll correct me if I'm wrong in assuming that you're talking about the quantum mind method here. But the quantum mind aspect of the mind method has the same purpose it's always had, to help you to help yourself. So whatever issues you may have, it helps you to open up and unlock those doors within your own mind that have the solutions, because we all have solutions to every problem we have. It's just a matter of finding where they exist. And we've lived in a culture for so long that says experts know everything and we don't know a thing. So we tend to disempower ourselves. Well, quantum mind power, quantum mind method is there to help you to change that. That being said, a lot of my clients were saying, we want something that's more specific as well. Well, I could design major systems for each of these things and charge you $300 for them. Or I could include them in the upgrade for the quantum mind method, which is exactly what I did. So we have the 4 topics that are the most asked for. And those topics include, but they're not just including, they actually have more than we actually realize, because they're designed, again, based on research. So there's research on the topics themselves, and there's also research on the specific frequencies that are involved. So basically, the way it works is we have the tuning or the retuning of the quantum mind system, and then we have these what we call targeted mini systems on anxiety, on depression, insomnia, and stress. These are the 4 biggest concerns that were given to me by our audience, literally by you folks. So basically, because of that, we've created these mini systems. And what happens is with the mini systems, you have an entrainment only recording. You have an entrainment recording with a hypnotic style guided meditation. And then there's, of course, an instruction sheet that goes along with a tip sheet. And the tip sheet includes little exercises that I want you to do to help, that helps to incorporate and take advantage, full advantage of the entrainment aspects of the system to allow you to cope and deal better and even help yourselves to have a much better situation with respect to any of these topics. Again, some people are of the opinion that they need something specialized. I believe the quantum mind method as it was, or quantum mind power as it used to be known, could handle all of this. But if you have it in your head that you need something specific because you don't have the faith in yourself, which I believe you should have, by the way. But if you don't, that's okay right now, because you'll get there. And that will allow you to actually know, okay, Morry designed this specifically. The frequencies are specifically designed for this. It's designed especially for me to accomplish these goals. That can sometimes be the push you need to get past these things. So that's why the recordings are there. Now, that being said, you can intersperse. I do understand not everyone is going to have 2 hours a day or an hour and a half or 3 hours a day to listen. So if you want to use any of these mini systems, they can be used in times of need. But I strongly suggest you do the exercises on the tip sheet as well if you truly want to get great results. So I'm having a sudden anxiety problem. I will shift from using the quantum mind method main system recordings to the specialty recordings for anxiety. When I start getting more normalized, I can go back. I also have people who will listen to the regular system, the regular part of the system, the main body of the system, for like modules 1 through 8, for say 2 or 3 days in a row. Then they will rotate through the 4 specialty recording systems. So they'll do one of them after 4 days, go back to the quantum mind method main systems for another 3 or 4 days, then do the next one, the next specialty recording, and so on, and just kind of rotate through. Basically, we're all scientists, and you will end up finding out the best way for you to listen. But to start with, it's always better to follow the directions as closely as possible. But I do realize there's a lot of recordings there. So that's why, one of the reasons why I host these calls is to help you to kind of weed through in the beginning stages. After a while, a month or two, your brain is pretty much going to ask you what to listen to. And the only rule at that point is listening regularly and consistently. It's just like brushing your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth regularly, they're going to rot. If you don't exercise consistently, you're going to lose condition. It's the same thing with your brain. So I hope that helps. Okay, let's see here. Okay, it looks like I have 1, 2, 3. It looks like I have 3 questions. So far this call's been almost half an hour. I'm certainly happy to have it end whenever you all want it to end. But please type away. I prefer to make this go at least an hour if possible so that people tuning in later on the replay have some good information here. Okay, so let's go to Sandra Lee. When listening to Quantum Confidence, I yawn a lot. Is that a normal reaction? Yeah, it is actually. And it's a sign that you're being physiologically influenced by the brainwave activity. So that's a good sign. Now, for those of you who don't yawn or don't get tingles, a lot of us get tingles in our fingers or in our legs or hands or feet or whatever, then that doesn't mean you're not getting benefits. But many people have physiological reactions while they're listening. Generally, especially when it comes to breathing changes, it is an adaptation of the body. So if you're yawning a lot, that can sometimes mean that there's an abundance of CO2 in your room, so you may want to open a window. Okay? Because yawning tends to bring in more air, and the idea of your body bringing in more air is simply a matter of trying to get more oxygen into your blood. So I would try opening your window or having better circulation in whatever room you're doing the recordings in. But additionally, it can be a sign, you might be in that room all day and nothing happens, and then you use the recordings and you're yawning. That's simply a sign of your physiology adjusting and adapting to a different mental state. At least that's my opinion of what's going on. And unless I had you hooked up to a whole ton of multi-million-dollar equipment, I wouldn't be able to say with certainty. But my educated guess would be that's what's going on, and it's certainly nothing to worry about. By the way, if any of you feel heavy or light, or if you feel like the recording took an hour when it took 20 minutes or 25 minutes, or you felt like it took 5 minutes, these are all very natural. Everybody has different things. I have plenty of people who don't notice a thing when they're listening. They hear these pulsing tones for half an hour or 40 minutes or 50, however long the recording is, and that's it. That's all they notice while they're listening. They get benefits afterwards, and that's why they continue to listen regularly. But that's the general idea behind it. So hopefully that helps. Okay, Shannon would like to have the list sent to her, please. Okay, what I'm going to do is, because I actually can't send you anything from here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my email address here. And anyone who wants the list, just make sure I typed it right. I'm not the world's best typer. Okay, or typist, typer. I just coined a new word. So anyone who wants to contact me directly, or they need to, they want to get the list of triliminals or brain prints so that they can choose and create their own custom systems, you can contact me at themorrymethod@gmail.com. If you need me for something urgent, you can always call me at, or text me for that matter with your phone number at this number. I'm in Canada, so if you don't have a long distance plan to Canada, you can just send me a quick text with your phone number and a brief description as to what you want, and I'm more than happy to help you with that. Okay, so let's see. Sandra Lee, I have my volume turned right up on high and the sound is still low. Okay, Shannon, is the volume okay for you? If you can just let me know, and if anyone else on the call here can just let me know, that would be great. I'm just going to mute out and come back in again and see if that helps. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. It's okay. All right. All I can say, Sandra, is that it might be an issue with your internet connection or your computer. Thank you very much, Alexia and Shannon, for letting me know and giving me the update. That's terrific. Okay, so here's the thing. We're out of questions now. So I'm happy to give kind of like a mini lecture to fill up some time and to give you something of value, because that's what I really want to do. I want to give you value. So if you don't have specific questions, is there something that you'd like me to explain or describe? Okay, just type it out and let me know, because otherwise I'm going to have to end the call. And my wife will love that. But I want to give more. I don't feel like I've given enough on this chat so far. So are there any topics, anything you'd like explained about maybe one of my technologies? I did mention the VI technology. Do all of you know about that, the visual image entrainment, how that works? There we go. Okay, Michael, thank you for joining in. Okay, great. Keep the questions coming. I love them. Thank you. Okay, so Michael, what is your view on the Cuban sonic issues experienced by the U.S. diplomats? Okay, that's a good question, because I am kind of like a sonic guy myself. I was developing something many moons ago, and I was trying to develop audio signals that could entrain the entire body as opposed to just the brain. Because many of you may or may not be aware that the body, every cell in your body can be entrained, not just your brain. We call it brain entrainment, but you know, the cells in your hand can be entrained, the cells in your scalp can be entrained, in my shoulder, not my shirt. I don't think I can entrain my shirt, but you never know, maybe. So what I had to do was I actually had to get a new computer after my testing, because it was so horrible. The effects that it had on me were so bad. I was totally messed up for like 3 weeks. And I mean totally messed up. I felt nauseated. I felt sick to my stomach. I had horrible headaches. It was terrible. So you may be asking, okay, Morry, so you obviously screwed that up. You know, why did you destroy your computer? And the reason why I did was because I didn't want anyone to copy my results. It would be very easy to weaponize sound, is basically end result here, Michael. It's too easy, actually, to weaponize sound. And I will never do anything like that again. I will stick with the brain, and that I know really well. And I mean, there's probably a good way to entrain the whole body. I'm not sure we're ready for that yet. So uh, the thing is, even though I don't badmouth. Well, I kind of do badmouth. Many of you may have heard me say that I'm not a giant fan of binaural beats. So one of the reasons is I don't find them to entrain anything. But one thing they're really good at is focusing a signal on a specific point. So as a matter of fact, what you can do is you can actually send a signal. I can send my voice using a certain kind of projector to you, and the person standing next to you won't hear me. You will, and it'll sound like a voice coming from inside your head. That's pretty scary stuff. Now, it's not cheap to do that. Not anyone can do that. You'd have to know a lot about the science and the neurology behind it. But that being said, it can be done. And who knows if law enforcement somewhere isn't already doing that in certain situations to try to free hostages, whatever. I mean, there could be good purposes for these things too. But that being said, I believe that judging by how it's been working and how it's isolated to specific individuals, I would say chances are some kind of binaural technology associated with a negative form of entrainment, if you will. In other words, making the cells pulsate at frequencies very unnatural to them, are probably responsible. At least that would be my guess. The next question would be, if you know you're under attack like this, can you do something about it? I also believe you can, yes. Much like you can jam a radio signal, you can jam any other kind of signal too. So having different reverberations, different frequencies pulsing around you, I believe would deaden those effects. So if that was like a part 2 to your question, then there you go. Thank you, Satellite, for letting me know about the sound fading in and out as I'm moving back and forth. I'm going to lean forward and try to stay closer now, which will be good for my voice, but not so good for those of you who have to look at my face. So there you go. Okay, so Michael, let me know if I answered all your questions and concerns about that. Keep in mind, this is just my opinion. I don't work for a government, and I wouldn't have anything to do with this unless it was in a defensive, purpose. And when I say defensive, I mean to counteract someone who's trying to screw you over. That would be the only thing that I would be okay working on. Okay, so let's see here. In the quantum mind method, which is quantum mind power 2.0, can I listen to the brainwave to the BMW? Well, you can listen to a BMW anytime you want. I'm assuming you mean brainwave entrainment, of course, and follow it immediately with a meditation. Yeah, you can. Generally speaking, I generally say that if you're listening to neural synergy or the Schumann resonance, you can listen to a spoken word meditation immediately afterwards. And I stick with that, except I'm also going to add that any spoken word meditation that I do, you can listen to immediately afterwards. That being said, after a month or two of steady use, I believe it's okay. Pardon me. I believe it's okay for you to actually listen immediately after, repeat a recording 2 or 3 times if you have the need. I found that very helpful for myself when I was having, and I still get that vertigo situations, and I listen to recordings 2 or 3 times. It helps to calm them. So it helps me calm, I guess, my nervous system, and that calms down the sense of dizziness and nausea. So there you go. So yeah, you can. But please keep in mind that the instructions as they're laid out in the system are a starting point. So I strongly suggest people who are unfamiliar with my work or haven't been doing it for years actually follow the instructions as best as they can for at least the first couple of months. It gives you an opportunity and your brain an opportunity to acclimatize. Now you'll notice I didn't say get used to, because you actually don't get used to these recordings. There's recordings that I listen to at least 2-3 times a week that I have been listening to for decades. So it took a while to get systems together that was able to help me through my depression and everything. But I got momentary relief from them, at least in the beginning. And those are recordings that I've been listening to literally forever. And I feel the effects all the time. Sometimes you feel differently. Sometimes you get different, actual effects, or what some might call after effects after listening. But they are there. You can't get used to brainwave entrainment that's properly engineered. There are some companies out there that say, buy our phase one. I'm just going to generically call it phase one. So buy our phase one, and then once you use that for a few months, you graduate to phase two. And the reason why you graduate to phase two is because phase one will stop having an effect for you, because now you're used to it. And then you go to phase two, and then you go to phase three and phase four. That is brilliant marketing. Or it's really just a facet of the fact that their entrainment isn't properly designed or engineered. And as a result of that, you do get used to it. But I can tell you there isn't a recording that I've ever created that anyone can get used to. That doesn't happen. It's like saying you get used to breathing or eating. So I've been alive for 50 years, and I'm saying, you know what, I've been eating for 50 years, and I'm not saying I'm 50 years old, I'm just pulling a number out of a hat here. So, I've been eating for 50 years, so my body must totally be used to it, and I'm getting nothing from it, so I'm going to stop eating. Or I'm going to stop breathing because I've been breathing for 50 years. There's no way my body's getting out of it the same thing it got when it started. So why am I even bothering to breathe? It's the same thing with your brain. With properly engineered entrainment, you don't get used to it. It doesn't happen. Exercise, the same thing. You don't get used to exercise and then it stops having an effect. If you go for a walk every day for half an hour, that will give you certain benefits. And if you stop 15 years later or 20 years later, you will lose those benefits. So I just want to make it really, really clear that you cannot get used to brainwave entrainment, and any company that's trying to tell you you get used to it is either because they're trying to market you or their products are ineffective, relatively speaking. And that's why you get used to it, because it's just not properly engineered. Okay, let's move on here. Alexia, thank you for joining in with a question here. Are there any of the recordings that target specific parts of the body for health issues, i.e. the heart? Okay, we're talking brainwave entrainment. So using your intention, for instance, the quantum mind method is a great example because it's primarily designed as a self-help. You help yourself, and it just helps you to help yourself. So if you go in with the intention, much like you're choosing an intention or a series of intentions when you're choosing brain prints or triliminals, if you go in using quantum mind method with the intention of having a healthier heart, of having a better relationship, of helping muscle cramps, of helping this, of helping that, then you can experience improvements in all of these areas. But remember, it's you helping yourself. The recordings are freeing up, if you will, brain power that you always have had, but for whatever reason don't utilize efficiently. So basically, you use the recordings with intention. And a great way I find to use them with intention is to put the headphones on, and before I'm ready to hit play, I state my intention out loud and in my head. Let's talk about leg spasms, for instance. So my intention is to have relaxed, smooth, calm muscles. Notice how I'm not saying I don't want to have leg spasms. Okay? Always ask for a positive outcome. Don't ask to avoid a negative one. All right? So if I'm getting leg spasms, that means my muscles aren't relaxed. They're not calm. They're not smooth and soft and supple. They're hard and they're disgusting and they're in pain. So always ask for the good side. So if you want to avoid pain, don't say I don't want pain. Identify the area that you want to feel better with and identify it and state your intention as the opposite of pain. My intention is that my legs are smooth and soft and calm and cool and collected and relaxed. Okay? You don't say pain-free. You don't say anything negative. That's how you do your intention. If you are inspired while you're listening to keep doing that intention or to visualize that area with a white light around it or in any other fashion, you're welcome to do that. Do whatever you're inspired to do. The only thing I don't say to do if you're inspired is to drive or do anything dangerous. But as far as thoughts are concerned, feel free to think if that is what you're inspired to do. Feel free to direct your thoughts if that's what you're inspired to do. Most people will lose track of what they're thinking of anyway at some point. But you're welcome to do whatever you're inspired to do. Remember, you're your own guru here. Your subconscious is going to know what you need to do. If you start telling it, don't think now because I'm meditating, well, you're not doing honor to your meditation. A lot of meditation experts will say, empty your brain, empty your head, don't think anything. Well, you know what? I don't agree. I think when you're meditating properly, you're actually getting thoughts coming into your head. Not always. Sometimes you'll have an empty mind, but other times thoughts will come in. And you need to honor those because there's a reason why they come in. There's a lesson there. There's something you need to learn. And that's why they're coming there. Now, if your mind wanders, let it wander. Whatever it does, it's doing because it knows. Trust in you. Don't trust in me or so-called experts out there who think they know. The ultimate truth here is that you can only be an expert in yourself. You can't be an expert in anybody else. And that goes for people in the business like me or any of the big names. They can only be experts in themselves. Their techniques, their technologies, they're only experts in themselves. You need to be inspired, reinterpret everything within your own frame of reference, and then act on it. That way it's yours. And that way you're more likely to get positive and beneficial results. That's why I design all my products the way I do, because it leads you in that direction. This is you here. It's not me helping you, it's you helping. I created a tool. I created a hammer, a saw, some nails, some wood stain. Fine. But if you choose not to use them, they gather dust. The minute you choose to do something, that is your pat on the back, not mine or anybody else's. So please remember that. You already have all the power in the world, and it's just a matter of you understanding that you do. And don't get sucked into the drama and the diatribe of the society, which says there's experts and then there's you. Because ultimately you are the expert for you. And you can apply what you're inspired to help yourself to be better. But I can't. No one else can. We can just create tools for you at best. And then if you use them properly for you, you should get results. And if you don't, you return them for a guarantee and then you move on to the next thing. And that's just how it works. Okay. Let's see here. Intention setting ditto for 1/2 hour triluminal intentions. Sure. Sessions, sorry. Yeah. Intention setting for anything at all. You can set an intention for any recording of mine, even you can listen to the humor triluminal and set as your intention a better relationship. Now you can see an obvious connection there, but I hope you get the idea. Doesn't matter what you set an intention for or what recording you're listening to. Trust your instinct. Your instinct is going to know better than I can advise or anybody else can advise. You may listen to the self-confidence triluminal and decide to have an intention to be a better driver or to watch less television or anything. You are doing that because on some level you know there's a connection there. And one will help the other. So please trust yourselves. Don't question yourself so much because when you question yourself, you doubt. And when you doubt, you start looking for answers outside. And I want you to look for answers inside. That's the real trick here. I want you to look for answers inside. That is where the value comes from. It all comes from you. So many times I've looked for my sunglasses and I've had them on my head. Or I've looked for my car keys and they're in my hands. That, if you ask me, is my subconscious's way of telling me, Morry, your answers are inside. They're not out there. They're in here. And the sooner most of you start understanding that your answers are inside, and maybe that's why you've been working your whole life to discover and to grow and to enlighten yourself, and maybe you've been having difficulty or hitting a lot of brick walls. I think if that's the case, it's been happening because you're not looking in the right place. You know, if you go into a room and someone says there's a pen there, can you get it for me? And there is no furniture and there is no pen, you can look forever and you won't find the pen. At some point, we have to realize that we are responsible for our own happiness. You know, I have a wonderful wife. She loves me. I love her. I say she makes me happy, but in reality, I make myself happy. She says I make her happy. In reality, she makes herself happy. Think about it. If I make her happy, that's because she has chosen that being around me makes her happy, which in reality is her making herself happy. We're all responsible for our own happiness. We all make the choice whether we're going to learn from experience or whether we're going to call it bad. Because the minute we call something bad, we don't learn from it. We resist it. And I think things get worse when we resist them because I think they love us and they want us to know things. And if we learn the lesson, we don't need to be slapped in the face to start paying attention. We can just hear it nice and quietly and calmly. So hopefully that helps. And I'm sorry if I went on a soapbox there a little bit, but I will get off now. Okay. So let's see. All right. Well, we're at 51 minutes and we're out of questions. So if anyone has another question or a comment or a concern, please just type anything and hit enter, just so I know that you're there, and I'll be happy to talk and take up time to give you a chance to write. That being said, I see Carface100, great name by the way, has just left a message here. You're welcome, Alexia. And that my answering of this comment or question should help you to have time to ask some more. Okay, let's see. Why don't suggestions go straight into the subconscious and stay? Why do you have to keep listening to it for it to be more effective? Well, let me ask you something. When was the last time someone told you something once and that changed how you think about everything in the universe? That's just not the human condition. That's not how it works. We learn from repetition. That is the biggest lesson you need to understand. That's why the triliminals, that's why the subliminals, that's why my brain prints all have multiple expressions of all of these different statements. The trick here is that if we can get you exposed to more positive statements, then you are already exposing yourself to negative ones through people, through organizations, through the media, through television, through radio, through the through newspaper, magazines, blogs, whatever. Then you will start naturally thinking more positively. The reason why, if you are noticing you think negatively a lot, you think the economy stinks, government stinks, this stinks, that stinks, everybody stinks, your neighbors stink, okay? The reason why we believe these things is because we are programmed to believe these things. And programming in the human mind isn't like programming a computer where you write a line of code and now the computer knows what's going on. Programming a human being requires multiple writing. Literally, it's like a road. The more traveled it is, the more you get these little gutters where the tires are. And it's harder to get out of these gutters. And that's how the human being learns. That's why when we go to school, we don't go to school for 3 days. Because they could just tell us everything once, and there you go. It's now ingrained in your subconscious and your conscious mind, and now you know everything there is to know. That just isn't how the human brain works. It isn't how human learning works. It's all repetition. You need to hear things often. Now, a lot of people ask me, why do your triliminals say you are instead of I am? Because you have advertising like for Nike and other large companies that say I am this, I am that, and that's supposedly the most powerful affirmation introduction, if you will, that exists. And that actually is a load of garbage. Because imagine that you have a broken leg and it hurts like crazy. So you're going to sit back and you're going to tell yourself, my leg feels fine, my leg feels fine, my leg feels fine, my leg feels fine. Well, you know what? You can say that 1,000,000 times. And unless it takes you long enough that your leg heals over those million times, it's not going to change anything. As a matter of fact, it's going to make it worse because you know your leg hurts. And you're trying to say your leg doesn't hurt. It doesn't work like that. That is a fallacy. This is something that is accepted about affirmations over the years and forever, and it's wrong. It doesn't help you. If you are poor or you don't have enough money and you keep saying, I am rich, I am rich, I am rich, I am rich, tell me how many people you know that do that change their financial circumstances. I would venture to say nobody. Maybe the odd person wins the lottery or somehow gets a raise at work, but their real situations probably don't change very much at all, if at all, because it's a fallacy. Just because something is accepted by many people doesn't mean it's true. And this is a problem with human beings. We're way too accepting of what other people tell us instead of using our own brains, which, by the way, you have a brain, and the reason why you have one is to think with it, is to understand that you have a unique understanding of the world around you, regardless of what I say or the news media says or politicians say or God says or anybody says. You have your own unique view of the world. And if you pay attention to it, it will give you the interpretations that you need to succeed and to be happy. But I use I am because the truth of the matter, or sorry, I use you are because the truth of the matter is you didn't get programmed to believe you were good looking or not good looking or rich or poor or happy or sad or loving or spiteful because you talked it into yourself by saying, I am, I am, I am. You became this way because outside influences taught you that this was the reality of the universe. When you were born, you were what's called a tabula rasa. Again, you didn't know what smelled good, you didn't know what smells bad, you didn't know what this was, what that was, nothing. All of these things are learned. You don't learn from I am. You learn from you are, and it is. That's how you learn. That's why so many people get so many benefits from the triliminals, because it is you are. Also, how does it help you if you hear me talking to you in the triliminals going, hey, I am happy. How about you? Right? Because you're hearing me saying I am happy. How does that help you? It doesn't help you. It doesn't help you at all. And even if you do your own affirmations and you record them saying, I am happy, I am rich, I am this. Well, you know what? Again, you know it's you and you know you're saying something that isn't true. It actually hinders you. It hurts you. It holds you back. There is a long history in this world of people believing there's not enough to go around, not enough wealth, not enough health, not enough this, not enough that. And a lot of these people are very wealthy and very rich because their families made lots of money on the backs of other people during depressions and other times. So what happens is they don't think there's enough, so they teach you laws of the world or universe, or at least get you to believe in these laws that make you think you're empowering yourself when in reality you're disempowering yourself. So I'd like you all to understand this now. And when you move forward, to understand that you are now in full control of your life. And it's up to you. If you're inspired by anything I'm saying, don't take it verbatim. Take it, in other words, don't take it because I said it. If you're inspired by it, it's because there's a part of you that has its own way of thinking about this, that likes what it's hearing. So take it in, reinterpret it within your own frame of reference, make it your own, and then act on it. That's when you will find your wealth changing. That's when you will find your confidence changing and your relationships changing and all these things changing. That's how all of my products are designed. They're designed to help you to do that for yourself. They're tools, they're hammers, they're saws, they're spray guns. They're all these things that are designed to help you to help yourself. But if you don't use them properly, they can't do anything at all. Okay, but really, please understand, it's you. It's not me. It's not some other expert out there. We are only mouthpieces. And our job is to give you tools to help yourself. And that's all we're here for. Regardless of what they say, some of them might believe they actually have the secret to the universe. If that's what they believe, that's fine. But if you believe they have the secret to your universe, I think you're going to be disappointed more often than not. Okay, I keep hopping up on that soapbox. Okay, so let's see here. Why does last century's auto-suggestion affirmation seem less effective now? Okay, Michael, can you explain what you mean by that, please? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by last century's auto-suggestion affirmations. Affirmations, I mean, explain yourself if you feel you need to after I answer this. You may not need to. Affirmations, unless they're designed to be reinterpreted by the listener, in other words, if you don't write them yourself, if I wrote them, if someone else wrote them, and they're not designed to be reinterpreted by your own conscious, subconscious minds, then they're not going to be effective whether they're modern or 1,000 years old. It doesn't matter. They won't be effective for the listener. They have to be designed so that the listener is going to reinterpret everything automatically without any conscious thought on their own part. It's just going to happen. That is how affirmations become effective. Also, when they stop using the I am garbage, which is I don't just believe in it. I will go as far as saying it is a truth, at least for now. My understanding may change down the road. It changes all the time. And that's the other thing. People who are too strong in their beliefs and who think it's written in stone and that's how it is, I think these are people you need to turn and run to the hills from. Because these are people who may be charismatic, but they don't have your best interests at heart. If their best interest is for you to stroke their ego by saying, "Oh, Morry, you're brilliant. Thank you for saving my life," then you should be running away from me. Because my ego shouldn't have any part to play in your joy and your happiness and your success. Nothing. If you want to be grateful to me because I came up with a system that helped you to help yourself, terrific. I'm more than happy to say, well, thank you. You made my day. But I need you to understand that any benefits are pure and simple yours. Again, I can create whatever I want. Anyone can create or write any kind of book they want. It doesn't matter if you don't read it, if you don't interpret it, if you don't act on it. It's all you. You are the superpower here. You all have a big red chest. Sorry, you all have a big red S on your chest, like Superman, okay, and Superwoman. You're all super, and you all have superpowers. And the sooner you believe in it, the sooner you will see those powers expressing themselves in nature and in experience and in people around you. So I hope that answers your question on auto-suggestion, Michael. If not, though, feel free to add below, and I'll be more than happy to clarify. Is there an historical aspect, or is it just fleshless application of the technique? Okay, again, I believe I've already addressed this in my answer, but if I haven't, maybe you can reword it a little bit so I understand more what you mean by last century's auto-suggestion affirmations, okay? Carface 100, for someone with grief and sadness issues from past traumas, can your audios help release them? Okay, now I'm not a doctor and I'm not allowed to say anything like that outright, but I can tell you that it is a common event, as a matter of fact, for people who have repressed or otherwise undealt with issues to have them come to the surface. I actually had a customer maybe 7, 8 years ago whose wife contacted me by phone, and she was yelling and screaming at me, "What have you done to my husband? He is a mess. I can't believe you've done this. I can't believe you sell this stuff and people buy it." And she just went on and on and on and on and on. I listened to her. I explained to her what happens and what he should do, which I will let you all know about as well if something like this happens to you. And about 4 weeks later, the same individual called me up, thanking me up and down. So here's what happens. If you are listening, it can be too loudly, or even just for your circumstances at too high a volume. Then this kind of system can definitely bring up repressed or otherwise undealt with issues. Now, if you feel that happening, so you feel a welling up of emotion, anxiety, anger, sadness. I've had people spontaneously cry, and they don't know why. Things are being brought up. Now, I'm not here to force catharsis so that all your repressed stuff comes to the surface and kills you while it does it. The trick is, if you feel something coming up that's uncomfortable, you stop listening for a few days. Once you stop listening for a few days, it's a simple matter of waiting until you go back to your normal level of function. Once you get back there and you start listening again, listen a little bit less often and at a much lower volume. Volume kind of can act as a gas pedal for this. So imagine you're driving down a beautiful winding country road at say 30 kilometers an hour if you're in the United States, or England, let's talk 50 mile, let's say, 50 kilometers an hour or 30 miles an hour. There we go. So you're going down this beautiful winding road, gorgeous scenery, and of course your car's having no problem because you're going at a reasonable speed. Now let's say you're taking the same road, but you're doing 100 miles an hour, or 100, I guess what's that, about 160 kilometers an hour. So what happens is now you're totally out of control. You're probably going to run off the road and flip the car. Much more stressful situation. When we lower the volume on the entrainments, we lower the power as well. This should allow your repressed feelings and emotions to come up in a much more comfortable manner. When you start feeling totally comfortable again, then you can slowly, the next time you listen, raise the volume. Wait until you're fully comfortable again, and then raise the volume again, and so on until you get up to what I call a conversational volume. So I'm told that I'm a little quiet on this call, so maybe not the tone that I'm using, but a regular conversational volume. That is the volume you get yourself back up to. But using this information now, because I want to let you all know if you experience these things that you can do something about it. Okay? But so to get back to the question again, then yes, I believe that these things can help with releasing these traumas in these circumstances. I've had plenty of people who have lost feelings and they don't remember how. In other words, they would get triggered by something in the past. Now they don't get triggered by it, and they would contact me and tell me that, hey, since I've been using your stuff, my buttons can't be pushed anymore at work, or I spontaneously stop smoking, or all kinds of weird things happen. It depends on what you need, because ultimately your conscious, your subconscious, and your conscious mind work together, and unconscious also. Believe it or not, there are three, not two. So when all these things work together, they actually work to help you. When you can continually see them as separate beings and entities at odds with each other, you create a circumstance and a situation where you're at odds with yourself. So that's part of the reason why you might have these past traumas that don't go away in the first place. The second part is that I believe we all have a 6, 7, 8-year-old in us that won't let go. And every bad decision we've ever made is the responsibility of that 6, 7, or 8-year-old. And that 8-year-old, let's say, is there because at about that age is when you suddenly make the most important and powerful discovery you've ever made and ever will make in your life, that you are autonomous. And mommy and daddy aren't necessarily gods. The minute you develop that sense of individuality, that is the most powerful thing you're ever going to do. As a result, when you figure out something that intense, you naturally think you know everything. And I'm sure those of you who have children know very well that the kids all think they know everything. And that's what happens. That little 8-year-old or 7-year-old, whatever, inside of you believes it knows everything. And it will do anything it can do to hold on to power over you. So when you start using entrainment and other systems that help you to grow and help you to enlighten yourself, the child within you may throw a hissy fit and do things to try to make you stop doing the entrainments or these other practices. That is what resistance is. When you feel that resistance, now hopefully you can interpret it for what it truly is. Just a hissy fit from an 8-year-old who lives inside of you. It's you when you were 8 and thought you knew everything. But now that you understand the dynamic behind it, hopefully you will be able to start exerting power and gaining control again. Because who of us will let an 8-year-old rule the household? Not me. I'm sure none of you would want to either. Believe it or not, for most of our issues, that 8-year-old's been ruling the roost. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into how and why we act the way we act. So many times, and I was alluding to this about using your brain, and my brain and everybody's brain, is that so often we just accept things as they are, and we don't ask questions, and we don't investigate, and we don't look into it. When you look into it, when you ask questions, when something happens or something makes you feel a way that you're uncomfortable, that means there's something to be learned there. You're doing something wrong, you're thinking something wrong, or there's something to be learned. Pay attention to that. Learn about it. Figure it out. You will become more enlightened than you currently are. Asking questions is how we get answers. We rarely get an answer without asking a question. So I hope that helps. Okay, let's see. Satellite likes my soapbox. Let's see here. Okay, Carface 100. Can you get into the theta range or stage if you cannot physically relax? Sure you can. You may have heard of something called brainwave entrainment. Has nothing to do with your conscious or physical state. It's strictly a matter of your brain following the expression of tones from something called the frequency following response. It's kind of like a monkey see, monkey do reaction your brain has to stimulation. So if you stimulate yourself into theta, brain will get into a dominant state of theta. I mean, that's just how it happens. Physically relaxing occurs that way. I had a period in my life where I was waiting on 2 medical results about cancer in 2 parts of my body, or the possibility of cancer in 2 parts of my body. I had to wait like a total of 2 months for both of them. So there was a period where the wait time was overlapping for like a month and a half or 2 months. And I was enjoying life, and I was smiling, and I was laughing, and I was doing things, even though I had the specter of possibly cancer in 2 areas of my body floating over my head. And I was able to enjoy. And I was listening to recordings in the theta range and others as well, for that matter, 3-4 times a day. So under stressful circumstances, you may want to increase your listening. But that being said, oh yeah, I will definitely say that you can get yourself to physically relax by changing. I mean, think about it. When you change how you think, when you change what you're thinking about, you can relax. We all know that. Understand that what you think creates brainwave frequencies. Those brainwave frequencies create neurotransmitters, endorphins, and hormones, neurochemicals. Those neurochemicals are actually what makes you feel the way you feel. So if I decide that giving my wife a big hug is going to make me feel warm and fuzzy inside, and I give her a big hug, then I feel warm and fuzzy inside. And a lot of people don't question that. They just say, well, hugging my wife makes me feel warm and fuzzy. In reality, hugging your wife doesn't make you feel warm and fuzzy. Deciding that hugging your wife makes you warm and fuzzy, and that the act of hugging her makes you warm and fuzzy, creates brainwave activity, which creates a neural soup, I call it, which is a combination of the neurotransmitters, hormones, and endorphins. And all of these blend together to create a soup, which is designed to allow you to feel what you feel. That's why you feel things. If you're interested at all in what I'm saying, it's because you've decided to be interested. You've heard a little bit, you've decided to be interested. Your brain is now creating neurochemistry that is allowing you to remain interested. If I suddenly said something horrible or tasteless, and you said, oh, this is disgusting, and I'm hanging up now, that feeling of disgust, that feeling of hate would be a result of you not liking what I said. You've judged what I said as bad for you. And as a result, your brain creates neurochemistry. So now when you hear my voice, you're disgusted. It works the other way too. I say something that goes, aha, wow, that's cool. I never really thought of that before, that it's actually my chemistry that makes me think and feel, or makes me feel the way I feel. That's really interesting. Well, that again is your brain, your mind saying, this is interesting. This is really neat. I've never heard this before. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. And then that allows you to feel and experience what you feel. So it's the decision, the brainwave activity that gets created as a result of that decision, the chemistry that gets created as a result of various parts of the brain going into various brainwave states, which create different neurochemistry, which mix together to allow you to feel what you feel. If nothing else, this should hopefully prompt you to question, especially when you have a negative feeling, to question things, but even positive too, because the more enlightened you are, the more you understand the dynamic of how and why you are the way you are, the more enlightened you're going to be, and the better able you will be to get joy out of life in all circumstances. Some of us think we need to be rich to be happy. I feel sorry for people who feel that way. I used to feel that way because money doesn't make you happy. I know plenty of people with money who are miserable. I know plenty of people who go paycheck to paycheck who are absolutely in love with life. They just have a wonderful time. Money does not make you happy. Happy makes you happy. If you pay attention to how you feel, you'll see pretty easily what makes you happy and what doesn't. If you just accept what you hear and read, then money's going to be a big problem for you because you're going to accept that it's a big problem for you. But it really isn't. We choose to be happy. We choose to be everything. Okay, let's see. Okay, do you have any actual brainwave scans people can see after using triliminals? I have, but I'm not, they're private research. I don't actually publish my research because I kind of have a little bit of a problem with research. I do research for myself and on myself and on a small group of people for the sake of product development. But, well, I think this is easier if I tell you a little story about Tylenol. Tylenol is very well known as a pain reliever, muscle pain reliever. Let me try that again. It's known as a muscle pain reliever and for headaches. Very well known for that. Now, they can make that medical statement because they have, I think, minimum two or three studies that they paid probably millions of dollars for to have done that show an above placebo reaction to people who take their pills when they're aching, as opposed to people who take a sugar pill when they're aching. So people who take Tylenol tend to get a better result, less pain, less discomfort. So that being said, I believe that these organizations that accredit you with the ability to say this helps, this doesn't help, whatever, they require, I think, 2 or 3 studies that show above placebo effect. Originally, I believe there was 9 or 10 studies done, and most of them showed placebo effect or even lower than placebo effect. So I lost all confidence in published research at that point because someone can publish research after they've done something a million times and it failed each time. But the one time it works, that time they can publish. And the law allows them to make a claim based on that 1 out of a million shot. And I don't like that. One of the reasons why I give a guarantee, one of the reasons why I give sample recordings. And keep in mind, when I say sample, I'm not giving sample recordings. I'm giving recordings that are at no cost. They are full effect recordings. So the reason why I do that is so you can see for yourself, because ultimately Tylenol might help your headache and it might help your muscle aches and it might help your arthritis pain. But you know what? Until you try it, you really don't know. It doesn't matter what the research says. I'm sure all of you have had experiences where research has said one thing, you've done it, and you've had no experience at all. Nothing's happened. So to me, it's more important your experience, not what the research says. Yes, I do the research, and people sign, forms. One of these forms are privacy forms that make it so I'm not allowed to share certain images. I do have an image that I show of a brain that's kind of tuned and a brain that isn't tuned, a topographical view. If you look on YouTube and you type in my name, I think you'll find it's like a 3-minute video, I think, on quantum mind power. And I basically just talk through an image and you can see that image there. But effectively speaking, it's your personal experience that matters to me more than me being able to say anything. Now, if you do want specific research, you can always go to Google Scholar, and they have tons and tons and tons of research there about entrainment. Just type in brainwave entrainment. If you want to see some stuff on my own work that you can read, it was independently done by Jamaican University and a doctor there, as well as another one done by Brazilian University in conjunction with their military police. So there's 2 research reports specifically on my recordings. They were done independently. They asked me for permission, and they asked me to come up with a protocol for 2 or 3 weeks, I believe, that they would let the people who were the topics of the study use the systems and then be engaged from that point. But ultimately speaking, I wouldn't concern myself with imagery. I wouldn't concern myself with research. If you're going to purchase any of my stuff, or anybody else's for that matter, make sure they at least give you a money back guarantee over a reasonable time period, so that if you use the products properly and get no effect, you can get your money back. Or at least they give you a sample that can prove to you that there's something going on here worthy of your investment. So I hope that helps. Okay, it looks like we are out of questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask one more time if there's anybody out there with a question. Oh, you're very welcome, Cartface. Let's see, will you do a TED Talk or write a book? You know what? TED Talk doesn't like me. I've applied a few times and they just ignore me. They don't even respond with a negative response, which I find kind of funny. Yeah, I would do a TED Talk in a minute if they would let me. But I might be a little too far out there for TED Talks. You never know. As far as writing a book is concerned, I certainly have enough material, but I'm too involved in my research and service and development of new techniques. I have this desire that I'd like to have something for everybody. Now, I know that some people might say that's an unreasonable expectation, and I myself will tell you that water and air are the only two things that are good for everybody. But I can also tell you that triliminals, I can tell you that brain prints, I can tell you that the VI technology, these are 3 examples of me not believing that you can't do something for everybody. I have techniques on board. I've got 8 or 9 new techniques and new stimulation patterns that have never been used before in entrainment that I'm testing and I'm working on. I'd like to have enough choices out there that people could try a sample of this, a sample of that, kind of go to a smorgasbord, and you're not sure what you want to eat. So you have this giant table with hundreds and hundreds of options, and you get to take a little spoonful of this, a little spoonful of that, a little spoonful of this. And obviously by the end of that event, you're full. But the next time you come back, you know what you want. And that's what I want. I want to be able to have a large enough and varied enough choice for people so that they can help themselves to be better. And that's what I'm all about. That's what it's all about, actually, with all of us, with anybody in this business, whether they'll admit it or not. It's all about helping people to be a little bit happier and a little bit healthier and a little bit this and a little bit that. Ultimately, I believe we're all part of the same being. We're all part of a larger whole. And if you're a little happier tomorrow than you are today, I'm going to be a little happier tomorrow than I am today too. And that's what it's all about. So I don't see myself writing a book, at least anytime soon. I suppose if someone wanted to approach me and interview the crap out of me, they could probably get enough for a few volumes. But as far as me writing a book myself, I don't see myself having the time. My passion is more in coming up with applications that can be used for people to help themselves to be better, literally. And that's what I'm about. Not that books don't do that. I think books are wonderful. It's just that's not my passion. And I need to be honest and true to my passion. Much like I suggest you do the same for yourself as well. You need to be true to your passion. And it's not as hard to find your passion as you might think it is. Just listen to yourself and pay attention to yourself and see what makes you happy. There you go. You've now found your passion. Anything that makes you happy, anything that gets you excited when you're talking about it, that is something you're passionate about. You know, we get signals all the time letting us know what's good, what's different to us, but very few of us ask the questions. And when you ask the questions, as I said, that's when you get answers. So let's see. Okay, Michael, do you have an overview of where your various programs are most applicable? Well, obviously, you know, the different sales letters we have outline the benefits or potential benefits as we see them. The interesting thing with entrainment is that you get more than you advertise for. If you do entrainment right, you're going to give more benefit than you're advertising for. For instance, quantum confidence gives you a lot more than just boosted confidence and the ability to feel better about yourself. It's just a natural side effect of properly engineered entrainment. Your brain is more efficient, it's more effective, it just works better. These things are advances that may have nothing to do with confidence, but they're going to have benefits for you above and beyond that. If you want to know, there's not really a general area like a Morry store or the Morry Method store that has everything. But if you want to get an idea of what's currently available, there's Morry Method. I'm just typing in links here. So those of you who want can go check out. So there's morrymethod.com. There would also be truesubliminal, I believe, .net. That is my brain print site. Okay. Then we can also go to www.activemindsglobal.com. Now, Active Minds Global is an interesting site because that site was designed a number of years ago. A client of mine wanted me to have a more professional presence, not just self-improvement, but a more professional presence. So I created 3 products for that site. One is called NeuroLearn Plus. You can guess what that's for, with learning as its main component. Work Sharp, again, designed to optimize your ability to earn a living, to be best at what you do at your job, at your work, whatever, to be sharp. And then Revitamind. And Revitamind was written up, one of the recordings in it was written up in Dr. Dale Bredesen's best-selling book on the New York Times list, The End of Alzheimer's. So I'm actually redesigning and coming up with an updated version, although Revitamind as it stands now is still excellent as a program. So you can look at me on those 3 websites. Let's see, is there anything that I'm missing? Yeah, the one product that we also discussed is quantummindmethod.com. So let me make sure I spelled that right, quantummindmethod.com. So those are the 4 places that you can go right now. If you go to the Morry Method, it's not a sales-oriented website. You'll see that when you go there. It's designed more informational if you want a little bit about me. But if you click on the products link, you'll see different products outlined there. I think there's a link for brain prints and there's a link for triliminals. And I think there's 3 links there that if you give us your email address 3 times, you'll get 3 sample recordings at no cost either that you'll be able to use. I believe there's a brain print, which actually involves 2 recordings. There will be a triliminal or 2, as well as I think Alpha Flight is there as well. Interesting little recording we came up with years ago to help people, again, to help themselves. So those are the locations. If anyone needs to reach me again, I will. It's earlier in the chat, but we can write it down again. Morry at the morrymethod.com, or the previous email, which was the morrymethod@gmail.com. And my phone number's up in there somewhere as well. So if we have any more questions, feel free to type away. We are probably getting near the end. I will stop begging for questions shortly, as we're almost at an hour and a half, which I believe is a reasonable amount of time. However, if you are inspired to ask another 10 questions, I promise you I will stay and answer each and every one of them. Okay, Michael, so what triliminals are best for? So what are triliminals best for? Quantum programs, brain prints. Okay, so what are these all good for? All right, so triliminals are good for anything. They're really different types of systems. So triliminals do what I call reprogramming the negative reflexive thought process. Again, it's about how we learn. When you get that bill in the mail and you take 4 days to open it, it's not going to make it any better to wait 4 days, but you wait 4 days to open it. Okay? You get that phone call at midnight. Who died? Who's in an accident? Who got hurt? These are negative reflexive thoughts. Triliminals work to change those. So using triliminals or the brain prints, because brain prints are essentially subliminalized triliminals, those can be used to help change how you think, your actual thinking processes. The quantum mind method and quantum confidence you'll get on the Morry Method site too. That's why I didn't write it down there. But courses like that, although they're not really courses, they're systems, are designed for other purposes. Quantum Mind Power is a generalized self-improvement system. Quantum Confidence is similarly designed, but with the specific connotation of confidence and self-esteem issues. So ultimately, I would, Michael, and everyone out there, if you're looking for something and you're inspired to get something, hold your intention, what you want it for. Why do I want this? I want this to experiment. I want this to see what it can happen to me. I want this to help with my depression. I want this to help with my confidence. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever you want it to help with, I want you to hold that as your intention. And then take time, take your time, take a few days, however long it takes, to scan over the letters at these different websites and see if any jump out at you, if any are there for you, if any of them say, hey, this fits my intention. And trust yourself to pick the one that is good for you. I do offer guarantees, so if it turns out that it wasn't quite what you needed and you need something else, you can always trade it in for something else. Okay, within the 60-day period, of course, because we don't want to be taken advantage of. But we're more than happy that we would rather you get benefits than just buy stuff and let it sit there gathering dust. So I hope that helps. I'm going to state one more time, if there's anybody out there with another question and you're typing it, hit enter right now and then finish typing, just so that I know you're there and that you have something you'd like to ask or say. Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you very, very much for joining me tonight, or today, or this morning, or this evening, because this will be available as a replay, and we want everyone to feel welcome. So I want to thank those of you that participated, and even those of you who were just here. I honestly believe we're all connected, and I feel all of your energy, and I appreciate it. It's one of the reasons why I can go for these periods of time feeling like it took about 2 minutes of my life. And that's honestly how it feels. I could easily go another few hours. As a matter of fact, my record is about 5.5, 6 hours for one of these. And it's not a YouTube, however. I just started doing YouTube a few months ago. But I want to thank all of you for joining me. I hope I addressed most of your issues, comments, concerns, and questions. If not, you can contact me from my email address down there and ask anything you want. If you'd like it to be addressed on the next call next month, you just say so, and I'll be sure to include you in the questions when next month rolls around. In the meantime, thank you again for joining me. I'm Morry Zelkovich, and I'm here for you. Have a wonderful day, morning, evening, night, lunch, dinner, whatever. Bye for now.